Admiral Vexthal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Dominion, and watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. 2,000 warships stretched out in perfect formation behind him. Each vessel carried thousands of soldiers, weapons that could crack planets, and shields that had never failed in 300 years of conquest. The target system appeared on the main screen, a young yellow star with several planets orbiting it. The third planet from the star showed signs of life, water, oxygen, and most importantly, radio signals. The primitive electromagnetic waves told a clear story. This was a young species, barely capable of leaving their own planet. Report, Vexthal commanded. Commander. Yithka stepped forward, her scaled skin gleaming under the bridge lights. Admiral, our long-range sensors have finished scanning the target system. Vexthal's mandibles clicked in amusement. Nuclear weapons, how quaint. Minimal, sir. We detect scattered missile installations on their planet's surface. Their largest military vehicles are simple metal ships floating on their oceans. Yithka paused. The Admiral's eyes glowed with satisfaction. In his long career, he had conquered dozens of worlds. Some had fought bravely, others had surrendered immediately, but all had possessed at least basic energy weapons or defensive satellites. This primitive world had nothing. Vexthal asked. Approximately 8 billion individuals concentrated on the planetary surface. No orbital habitats. No colonies on neighboring worlds. Perfect. The Dominion preferred to capture intact populations when possible. Slaves were valuable, especially ones that bred quickly. 8 billion new workers would boost the Empire's productivity significantly. Any signs of defensive installations? Hidden bases. Yithka checked her data pad. None detected, Admiral. Our sensors show no energy signatures consistent with advanced weapons. No orbital defense platforms. No ships capable of interplanetary travel. Vexthal walked to the viewing port and stared out at the stars. Somewhere ahead lay another easy conquest, another world to add to the Dominion's growing empire. His superiors would be pleased, perhaps. This victory would finally earn him the promotion he deserved. Sir, the communications officer called out. The bridge speakers crackled with alien voices. The universal translator worked to decode the signals. Fragments of conversation emerged. Weather reports, news broadcasts, entertainment programs, music. Vexthal listened to the chaotic mix of signals and shook his head. These creatures were not even aware of the galaxy around them. Their radio waves leaked into space without any attempt to hide their location. They had practically invited conquest. He asked, excellent. Begin preparing the invasion fleet. I want troops ready for immediate deployment once we establish orbital control. The next few hours passed routinely. The massive fleet moved through space like a dark cloud. Each ship checked its weapon systems. Soldiers prepared their equipment. Pilots ran through combat simulations. Everything proceeded exactly as it had for hundreds of previous invasions. As they approached the outer edge of the target system, Vexthal ordered a final sensor sweep. The results remained unchanged. No defensive stations, no hidden bases, no signs that the inhabitants even knew they were coming. Admiral, the sensor operator reported, we are now crossing the orbit of the system's outermost planet. Vexthal Nodded, maintain formation. The fleet pressed forward past the orbit of another gas giant, past rocky worlds that showed no signs of life or development. Everything matched their intelligence reports perfectly. This was exactly what they had expected. A helpless, primitive world waiting to be claimed, approaching what appears to be their defensive perimeter. Commander Yithka announced. None, Admiral. No changes in their radio transmissions, no activation of defensive systems. Vexthal smiled. Some species managed to detect approaching invasion fleets and mount desperate last stands. Others at least tried to evacuate their populations or hide their valuable resources, but these humans seemed oblivious to the massive military force approaching their world. Sir, we are now crossing into the inner system, the navigation officer reported. Reduce speed to 1/4. Vexthal turned to address his bridge crew. Officers, we are about to add another world to the Dominion's glory. This will be recorded as one of our easiest conquests. The great fleet slowed as it approached its prey. 2,000 ships, their hulls dark against the starfield. 50 million soldiers ready for battle. Weapons capable of reducing continents to ash, and ahead of them a small blue world continued spinning peacefully in space. Its inhabitants went about their daily lives completely unaware that their entire civilization was about to change forever. At least that was what Admiral Vexel believed as his fleet crossed an invisible line in space that marked Earth's true defensive boundary. He had no way of knowing that this crossing would be the last action his empire would ever take in the solar system. The fleet moved forward into the inner solar system, confident in their overwhelming superiority. Behind them, the stars watched in silence. High Admiral Corvani sat in the command center of Dominion Central, 47 light years from the Sol system. Around her, dozens of communication officers monitored the subspace channels that connected the vast empire. Reports flowed in from conquered worlds. Supply ships requested routing updates. Patrol fleets reported their positions, but from Admiral Vexthal's invasion fleet there was only silence. Status report, Corvani commanded. Communications officer Yelendar looked up from his station, confusion clear in his large eyes. High Admiral, the last transmission from Fleet 7 was 18 hours ago. Corvani's voice carried a dangerous edge. Yes. High Admiral, we've attempted contact multiple times. Corvani stood and walked to the massive tactical display that dominated the center of the room. Fleet positions appeared as colored dots scattered across the galaxy. Most showed green status indicators, a few showed yellow for minor issues, but where Fleet 7 should have been, there was only an ominous red marker indicating lost contact. She asked. Technical specialist Morgan shook his head. Highly unlikely, High Admiral. Fleet 7 carries the most advanced communication equipment in our Navy. Multiple redundant systems. Corvani studied the display. Fleet 7 had been her most reliable force. Admiral Vexthal was arrogant but competent. His fleet had conquered dozens of worlds without significant losses. The target system had showed no signs of advanced defenses. She asked. Intelligence analyst Cresva activated a holographic projection. Primitive world, High Admiral. The dominant species has barely achieved chemical rocketry. no energy weapons. Detected no orbital installations. The High Admiral frowned. Meanwhile on Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen was working late. In her laboratory at the Arabo Observatory, she had been tracking an unusual pattern in cosmic radiation when her instruments detected something strange. A brief but intense burst of electromagnetic activity had occurred somewhere near Mars's orbit. "That's odd," she murmured, adjusting her equipment. The energy signature was unlike anything in her databases, too organized to be a solar storm, too brief to be a pulsar, and the frequency pattern seemed almost artificial. She ran the data through analysis programs, but nothing matched. Whatever had happened out there lasted only a few minutes before everything returned to normal. Sarah made a note in her log and moved on to other work. Space was full of mysterious phenomena. This was probably just another one for the unsolved file back at Dominion Command. The hours stretched into days, still no word from Fleet 7. High Admiral reported Commander Yithron from the Strategic Planning Division. Corvani's voice was sharp. "Perhaps we underestimated their defensive capabilities. Hidden weapons." Corvani considered this. It had happened before. Some species hid their true capabilities until directly threatened. But Fleet 7 carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. What could primitive humans possibly have that could stop such a force? "High Admiral," the communications officer called out. "We're receiving a transmission from Scout Fleet 12. The voice of Commander Nexhill crackled over the speakers. "Central Command, we are detecting massive subspace distortions from the target system, energy patterns unlike anything in our databases." Corvani made her decision. "Commander Nexhill, maintain your current position. Do not approach the Sol system." The High Admiral turned to her staff. "Prepare a stealth probe." Dr. Chen had forgotten about the energy burst until 3 days later when she received a call from a colleague at the European Southern Observatory. "Sarah, did you detect anything unusual 3 nights ago?" "Actually, yes. Brief electromagnetic anomaly near Mars orbit. We picked up the same thing, and so did observatories in Japan, Australia, and Chile." Sarah felt a chill. None. The energy output was enormous, but it lasted only minutes. After the call ended, Sarah pulled up her data again. She ran more detailed analysis, looking for patterns she might have missed. The more she studied the readings, the more convinced she became that the energy burst was artificial. The frequency modulations were too precise, too organized to be natural. But if it was artificial, who or what had created it, and why had it appeared so suddenly near Mars? At Dominion Command, the reconnaissance probe would take weeks to reach the solar system. In the meantime, other fleets reported their positions normally. Trade routes operated smoothly. The Empire's vast machinery continued functioning as if nothing had happened, but the absence of Fleet 7 created a growing sense of unease. 50 million soldiers and crew members did not simply vanish. 2,000 of the most advanced warships ever built did not just disappear without explanation. High Admiral Corvani found herself staring at the tactical display. More frequently, the red marker, indicating Fleet 7's last known position, seemed to mock her. Where were they? What had happened in that distant star system? Meanwhile on Earth, life continued normally. People went to work. Children attended school. Governments argued about trivial matters. None of them knew that their world had been targeted for invasion. None of them realized that somewhere in the darkness of space, evidence of humanity's first contact with alien life was drifting silently through the void. The only sign that anything unusual had occurred was a slight increase in aurora activity, reported by amateur astronomers. Beautiful streams of colored light that danced across polar skies for several nights before fading back to normal levels. Most people who saw the enhanced auroras simply considered them a pleasant natural phenomenon. They had no way of knowing they were looking at the afterglow of something far more significant, something that had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. 6 months had passed since Fleet 7 vanished. 6 months of sleepless nights for High Admiral Corvani. 6 months of unanswered questions that haunted the highest levels of Dominion command. The reconnaissance probe, Silent Observer, had finally reached the Sol system. After its long journey, its advanced sensors and cloaking technology made it invisible to primitive detection systems. If the humans had somehow defeated Fleet 7, they would never know. They were being watched. Probe operator Kessler monitored the data stream as it flowed back to Dominion Command. High Admiral, the probe has crossed into the outer system. Corvani leaned forward in her command chair. Scanning. High Admiral, I'm detecting metallic signatures consistent with our ship compositions. Multiple contacts. Kesson paused, his face showing confusion. Corvani stood. Yes, High Admiral. The probe is detecting what appears to be the complete fleet structure. A wave of relief washed over the command center. Fleet 7 was still there, still organized. Perhaps they had simply suffered a catastrophic communication failure. Such things were rare but not impossible. Open a communication channel to the fleet, Corvani ordered, already trying. High Admiral, the relief began to fade. Move the probe closer. The Silent Observer adjusted course, approaching the massive formation with careful precision. As it drew nearer, its sensors provided increasingly detailed information about Fleet 7's current state. What they discovered defied explanation. High Admiral, Kesseran's voice was barely above a whisper. The ships are. They're intact, completely undamaged. Hull integrity at 100% across the entire fleet. Power cores are active. That's the problem, High Admiral. I'm detecting no life signs aboard any vessel. 0 biological signatures. No movement. The command center fell silent. Corvani stared at the data displays, trying to make sense of the information. Negative. Cryosystems are not active, and the environmental readings show normal atmospheric conditions throughout all ships. What about the computer systems? All appear to be functioning normally. Corvani made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her career. Deploy a boarding pod. The probe released a small, heavily shielded boarding craft. It approached Admiral Vexthal's flagship, the Crimson Dominion, and attached itself to an auxiliary airlock. Automated systems cut through the hull and established a secure connection. The boarding craft sensors immediately detected normal atmosphere and gravity. Ship's lighting was operational. Everything seemed perfectly normal except for one crucial detail. There were no signs of life anywhere. The craft's robotic systems moved through the ship's corridors, recording everything. What they found was deeply disturbing. The crew quarters looked as if their occupants had simply stepped out for a moment. Personal belongings remained undisturbed. Beds were made. Clothing hung in lockers. In the mess hall, meals sat half-finished. On tables, drinks had been poured but not consumed. Food remained fresh, preserved by the ship's environmental system. The bridge was perhaps the most unsettling location. All stations were manned according to the duty roster, but the chairs sat empty. Command interfaces showed normal operations up until exactly 18 hours ago. Then nothing, not even an emergency shutdown. The ship's computer simply stopped receiving inputs from its crew. High Admiral Kesson reported, his voice shaken. Boarding craft is transmitting duty logs from the flagship. According to the records, everything proceeded normally until Fleet 7 crossed into the inner system. The last entry shows standard approach protocols being followed. Then the logs just. What about the crew quarters? Any signs of struggle? None whatsoever. Personal effects remain undisturbed. No damage to ship systems. No signs of weapons fire or boarding actions. Corvani rubbed her temples. In 3 decades of military service, she had never encountered anything like this. Fleets could be destroyed in battle. Ships could suffer catastrophic failures, but an entire invasion force of 50 million people did not simply disappear while leaving their vessels perfectly intact. Check the other ships, she ordered. Over the next several hours, the boarding craft visited a dozen vessels. Throughout the formation, the pattern was identical on every ship: complete absence of crew, normal ship operations. Until 18 hours ago, no signs of violence or evacuation. It was as if 50 million Dominion citizens had simply ceased to exist at the exact same moment. High Admiral, the intelligence analyst, spoke up. Unknown, but the precision is remarkable. Whatever happened, it affected only living beings. It left all mechanical systems completely untouched. Corvani studied the tactical display, showing Fleet 7's position. The ships maintained perfect formation, their automated systems keeping them stable in orbit like a ghost fleet sailing through space with no one aboard to command them. High Admiral Kesserin interrupted her thoughts. The probe is detecting something else. Energy patterns from the third planet. Unknown. The signatures are unlike anything in our databases. A chill ran down Corvani's spine. Had they completely misjudged this species? Had the primitive radio signals been an elaborate deception? Were these humans actually something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined? Recall the boarding craft. As the reconnaissance systems withdrew from Fleet 7, Corvani faced a decision that would affect the entire Dominion. Should she send another fleet to investigate? Should she report this to the High Council? Should she simply declare the Sol system off limits? Whatever had happened to Fleet 7 represented a threat unlike anything the Dominion had ever encountered. An enemy that could make 50 million soldiers vanish without damaging their ships was an enemy that could potentially do the same to any force sent against them. Ghost Fleet continued its eternal orbit, a silent monument to the galaxy's first encounter with Earth's true defensive capabilities. The Dominion Science Council had argued for 3 days straight. Half the Members insisted the Fleet 7 incident was impossible. The other half demanded an immediate scientific expedition to investigate. High Admiral Corvani listened to their debates with growing impatience. Enough, she finally declared. Dr. Yithrin, you will lead a research mission to the Sol system, but you will take no chances. One science vessel with full stealth capabilities. Dr. Yithron, the Dominion's most respected xenobiologist, nodded grimly. Understood, High Admiral. Answers: how did 50 million people vanish without destroying their ships? 3 weeks later, the research vessel Quantum Explorer reached the Sol system. Dr. Yithron stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as Fleet 7's ghost ships came into view. Even knowing what to expect, the sight was deeply unsettling. Begin full spectrum analysis, she ordered her team. Science Officer Kellen Dar worked at his station, directing the ships. Advanced sensors toward the silent Fleet. Doctor, I'm detecting quantum residue throughout the area, unknown. The quantum signature suggests dimensional manipulation on a massive scale. Dr. Yithrin felt a chill. Dimensional technology was purely theoretical, even for the Dominion's most advanced scientists. No known species had ever successfully manipulated parallel dimensions. The readings are unmistakable. Something caused a localized dimensional distortion exactly 18 hours ago. Absolutely not. Dr. Yithrin ordered a more detailed examination of the ghost fleet. What they discovered was even more disturbing. The quantum signatures on each ship showed identical patterns. Whatever had affected the crews had done so simultaneously across all 2,000 vessels. Doctor called communications specialist. Vorton, I'm detecting faint energy patterns from the third planet. The main screen displayed a representation of Earth's magnetosphere. At first glance it appeared normal, a magnetic field generated by the planet's rotating core protecting the surface from solar radiation. But as the computer enhanced the image, something extraordinary became visible. By all the stars, Dr. Yithron whispered. Embedded within Earth's natural magnetic field were structures that had no business existing, crystalline networks of impossible complexity stretched through the magnetosphere like a three-dimensional web. Energy flowed through these structures in patterns that hurt to contemplate. Dr. Kellendar's voice was shaken. I don't think Earth's magnetic field is natural anymore. It's been modified. More than that, according to these readings, it's a selective dimensional translator. It doesn't destroy targets. Dr. Yithron stared at the data, her mind struggling to accept what she was seeing. Into a parallel dimension, the quantum residue suggests the Fleet 7 crews still exist, but they've been translated into an alternate reality. The full horror of the situation began to dawn on everyone aboard the research vessel. Earth's defenders hadn't destroyed the invasion fleet. They had done something far more sophisticated and terrifying. They had removed the threat by simply placing it somewhere else. Dr. Yithron asked. Doctor, I'm detecting movement within the crystalline structures. Unknown. Dr. Yithron made a quick decision. Begin withdrawal. As the Quantum Explorer moved away from Earth's orbit, the energy patterns in the magnetosphere returned to their previous levels. Whatever intelligence controlled the defense system had noted their presence but chosen not to act. Dr. Vorton reported, "I'm receiving a transmission. No, doctor, this signal is far too sophisticated for their technology level." The bridge speakers crackled, then filled with a voice speaking perfect Dominion standard. The tone was calm, almost conversational. "Greetings, Dr. Yithrin. We apologize for the dramatic demonstration with your invasion fleet." Dr. Yithrin found her voice. "Who are you?" "Your soldiers are safe. They have been relocated to a dimension where they can live normal lives without threatening our protected world. They will never know what happened. We prefer to think of it as protective relocation. Your species has a disturbing tendency toward conquest and destruction. The humans, they are under our protection while they develop naturally." Dr. Yithron's scientific mind raced. "What are you?" "We are the ancients, as you might call us. We seeded this galaxy with life long before your species achieved space flight." "Of course not. That would contaminate the experiment. They must develop their own technology, their own culture, their own moral framework. The result will be the same. Your people will be safely relocated to a parallel dimension where they can live peaceful lives." Dr. Yithron realized the full scope of what they were dealing with. Earth wasn't just defended by advanced technology, it was protected by beings who could manipulate reality itself. Beings who had been around since before the Dominion even existed. Simply to be left alone. Declare this system forbidden to your people. Spread word through your empire that Earth is under protection. Doctor, you are a scientist. You understand exponential functions. We relocated 50 million of your people without effort. The threat was clear. This species could displace entire worlds if they chose to. The Dominion's military might was meaningless against technology that could simply remove problems by sending them elsewhere. "We understand," Dr. Yithron said quietly. "Excellent, safe travels, Doctor." The transmission ended, leaving the research vessel in stunned silence. They had found their answers, but the truth was more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. The emergency session of the Dominion High Council lasted for 18 hours. Dr. Yithron presented her findings 3 times to increasingly shocked audiences. When she finished, the vast chamber fell into stunned silence. Supreme Chancellor Vor, leader of the Dominion for over 40 years, spoke first. "You are certain of these claims, Dr. Chancellor?" "I witnessed the technology myself. The quantum signatures don't lie." Council member Kezel leaned forward. 50 million of our people, simply, they're alive and unharmed." Chancellor Vorth stood slowly. In his long career, he had authorized the conquest of hundreds of worlds. He had commanded fleets that could shatter planets, but this was beyond his understanding. Corvani stepped forward. "Chancellor, we must immediately classify the Sol system as absolutely forbidden. No Dominion vessel should approach within 50 light years." "Chancellor, with respect, this world is not primitive. It merely appears that way." The debate continued for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. The Dominion could not risk losing more fleets to Earth's mysterious defenders. The official proclamation was issued 3 days later. By order of the High Council, the Sol system is hereby declared permanent exclusion zone. All Dominion forces are forbidden from approaching within 50 light years of the target coordinates. The news spread through the galaxies communication networks like wildfire. The mighty Dominion, conqueror of 300 worlds, had encountered something that forced them to retreat. Other species took notice. On the trading station, Nexus Prime, Captain Jeller of the Zapirian Merchant Guild, received the alert while loading cargo for a routine supply run. He read the message twice, then immediately canceled his planned route through the outer edge of the Sol system. Change of plans, he told his crew. Asked his first officer. Jeller showed him the Dominion warning, because I've seen what happens when you ignore Dominion military advisories. Similar conversations occurred throughout the galaxy. Merchant captains, military commanders, and exploration teams all received the same message: stay away from Sol. The system was protected by something that even the Dominion feared. Meanwhile, on Earth, subtle changes began occurring that most humans never noticed. Dr. Sarah Chin was working late at hour when our computer received an encrypted data package. The file appeared in her system without any record of transmission, no sender information, no routing data. It simply existed where it hadn't been before. When she opened it, she found theoretical physics equations that were decades ahead of anything she'd ever seen. Mathematical proofs that solved problems she didn't even know existed. Technology blueprints for devices that seemed impossible. She whispered to herself. Similar packages appeared on the computers of key scientists around the world. Physicists at CERN found new particle theories. Engineers at NASA discovered revolutionary propulsion concepts. Astronomers at major observatories received detailed star charts showing previously unknown celestial objects. None of the recipients spoke publicly about their mysterious gifts. Something about the data felt too important, too dangerous to share casually. Instead, they quietly began incorporating the new knowledge into their research. Government monitoring stations also noticed changes. Deep space tracking facilities that normally watched for satellites and space debris began detecting signals from previously empty regions of space. Radio telescopes started receiving organized transmissions that seemed to come from Earth's own magnetosphere. In the hidden depths of the ocean, autonomous research stations deployed by various nations recorded unusual energy readings, patterns of electromagnetic activity that followed no known natural phenomena, as if something vast and intelligent was stirring beneath the waves. President Maria Vasquez received a classified briefing from her science advisors 3 months after Fleet 7's disappearance. The meeting took place in a secure bunker beneath the White House. Madame President, reported Dr. James Harrison, head of the National Science Foundation, we're detecting significant changes in Earth's electromagnetic field. Artificial unknown. President Vasquez studied the data. Reports, we believe so, Madame President. Something significant occurred in Earth's upper atmosphere. During that time period, Dr. Harrison hesitated. Possibly the president made a decision that would remain classified for decades. Increase funding for deep space monitoring. I want to know if anything else approaches Earth. Bug DPCP. Similar conversations occurred in government buildings around the world. World leaders received reports about mysterious energy signatures, unexplained technological gifts, and signs that Earth might not be as alone as previously believed. But the most significant changes occurred among a small group of humans who had always known the truth. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked as a marine biologist at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. To her colleagues, she was simply another dedicated scientist studying deep-sea ecosystems. They had no idea that her research lab was connected to a vast underwater facility that had existed for thousands of years. The day Fleet 7 disappeared, she received an alert through channels that didn't officially exist. The message was brief but significant. First test successful, planetary defense grid fully operational. Elena smiled as she read the report. The plan had worked perfectly. Humanity's older siblings had protected their younger relatives without the humans ever knowing they were in danger. She composed a reply using equipment that would have baffled Earth's most advanced engineers. Acknowledged. Continue monitoring galactic communications. The message transmitted instantly through dimensions that normal physics claimed were impossible to access. It reached similar hidden facilities around the globe where other descendants of the ancients continued their quiet guardianship of humanity. Earth remained peaceful and apparently primitive to outside observers, but now it carried a reputation throughout the galaxy as a world protected by forces that even the mighty Dominion feared to challenge. The Ghost Fleet continued its eternal orbit around Mars, a silent reminder of what happened when someone crossed Earth's boundaries uninvited. And in the depths of space, other species whispered a new rule of galactic navigation. Some systems are better left unexplored. The Sol system had become legendary, and humanity slept peacefully under the protection of guardians they would never see.